warm this afternoon from all of us here at Wild Earth and from Tembe Elephant Park. And thank you so much for joining us here. We are people, and I'm going to be host this afternoon. And I can't wait to see what pops up around the watering holes this afternoon. Starting out, which seems like the one is on a slow motion chase, right? Just casually on their way off to the water to have a drink. And there we have more. Seems like it's quite busy from what I can hear from birds going all over. See what. There we go, just a casual greeting. A quick touch of the mouth. Reassuring each other that they're still around. Just here to come and have a drink. See, this one seems to be the youngest out of this group. He's back at that patch. I can see it's wet there. It seems to have also drank there. Swinging his foot. Thinking of maybe changing his position for a moment there. I thought he might actually, doesn't seem like it. So, I would just like to remind our viewers that you can send questions. And if you subscribe, you can also send some questions. I'll try to answer your questions to the best possible. And you can go on the website where you can ask questions, and you can also join the conversation on the YouTube chat. That's at Final Control. And when your questions or your comments, then they'll pass that on to the hosts. You can also do so at Twitter or X with hashtag Wild Earth. A nice big elephant bull moving away there. Comparable to the other one, it looks quite large. And that elephant's do. It's interesting that he's stepping over to that pan to get some water and mud. That tail vigorously going, and one of the things of this very, very hot region, especially near their backside, around the faces, areas that they secrete a lot of moisture and other bodily secretions, tend to draw a lot of insects. Imagine, but even though the elephant skin is so thick, it's still very sensitive. Well, what do we have here? That looks extremely satisfying. I had a brief technical issue there, but now I'm back. This is amazing to see. You can see, even though he's already rolled both sides in the water, he's making sure that he's covering every single part of him. Judging from the fact that that elephant can roll around like that properly, means that that's quite a deep pool. Now, Catherine, I'm not sure. I saw you said that you haven't seen that individual. I'm not sure exactly which elephant you were referring to, but I have to say that bigger elephant moving away earlier from the water's edge, I haven't seen around here myself. I think we've been so lucky with the large elephants in this region, usually sprouting some pretty decent sized tusks as well. But that one was quite noticeable. Thank you, Joan Mello. A happy Tuesday to you too. Thank you very much. It looks like it's a happy Tuesday looking at this elephant. He's just slowing down for a moment to relax. He doesn't have his trunk out of the water. There we go. Using it as a snorkel. Victor, you're asking if the animals ever come up to the camera to come and touch and interact with it. Sometimes they do, especially some of the larger mammals. The elephant, occasionally. It depends on the position of the camera, but certainly with the eye view cameras, if these cameras are within reach, then the animals might come and investigate a little bit, just because it's something in their environment that they're not too used to. But it also usually just happens for a while, or with animals that's moving through the area that haven't been there in a while. They just notice something different, and then they get used to it and they leave it. You can see this elephant's got his ear flipped over. You can see that large body displacing quite a bit of water. Look at the hands edges. Look at them blowing bubbles from underneath the water. Now I can imagine when the animal's in the water like this, that trunk being quite a heavy muscle must give it a little bit of relief. It must be quite a comfortable feeling being able to move it around like that in the water. You can see the tusks also getting cleaned. It seems like they might be done now. That was a spectacular show. I'm pretty sure he's going to go cover himself with some of that dust to keep the moisture on the skin, and then maybe even a good scratch up against that tree. But I think while we leave this elephant to do that, we'll head over to Oldonio and see what we have there this afternoon. Two jackals. Amazing. It's been a pretty exciting start to this afternoon. Carefully inspecting what I'm assuming is other visitors to the watering hole. Now I would presume that these two are a pair. In a more comfortable position. Here the oxpeckers flying off. One jackal's clearly steering in that direction, so I'm assuming is paying attention to whatever it came off from. But that's okay. It looks like we had a bit of a signal issue there. So we're back at Tembe, where we can continue to watch this elephant's midday routine, which we can see has now moved from the water up to the tree. And a nice big elephant's moved in. Clearly see the other guys making space. Now it's interesting to see that ear that's flopped over like that. And I wonder what would have happened there. Occasionally elephants develop certain abnormalities with the ears, especially when they're young, maybe from a mild injury or some other reason. You see he's giving the other ear a very good scratch. Now the thing with an ear like that is that side of the elephant's ear is not as well protected from the sun as the rest of the skin, so they're often quite exposed. I'm assuming it would be a little bit more sensitive to sun. But not to the extent that the elephant hasn't adapted. You can see there he's throwing some dust and sand on him to help protect him. Catherine, I think it would be very, very nice to jump in a pool now. South Africa is just starting to heat up the side, but I'm glad to hear that it's nice and hot in Germany as well. I have been watching the news and some updates regarding the record highs in temperatures that's reaching Europe. Now the interesting thing is this water here looks very clean, and the reeds certainly help in cleaning the water, filtering it, and some of the other ecological processes that happen due to the soils and all of that. But I don't think I would jump into this water. Clearly the elephants have no problem. It seems quite clean to drink. In fact, that elephant in this pool, that was the first time I've seen an elephant in this particular pool. Joan, you're commenting on Victor's question about animals interacting with the cameras, and you're saying that you can imagine that baboons do interact. They certainly do. I have had the fortunate opportunity to partake in some camera trap surveys in areas, and often find that there's quite a few photos where baboons would come down and take selfies of them. Baboons are curious creatures by nature. Can make for quite comical views. And Lady Macbeth, you saying that the monkey techs are experts in tweaking the cameras. They certainly are. They are experts in, in tweaking them in all the wrong directions, but also ensuring for some great footage along the line. There's a lot of other visitors to the water's edge here. You can see two woolly-necked storks. Let's see, it looks like the one elephant, or that big elephant, is actually paying attention to the one. It looks like he's about to take a decision. Maybe not. It's quite a different weather conditions today from what we saw yesterday. You can see that elephant moving off. It looks like he's covered himself quite well with some dust now, and even had a good rub up against that tree. That should last him for a little while longer. Let's see, I can see another elephant dropping dung there. You can see he just went to go and inspect and have a brief catch up there, take a sniff. So, looks like we've lost Emmy. We back over to Okukuyu. We have some springbok down at the water. Kathy was saying that the elephants are so calming to watch. Indeed, they are. Elephants are quite calming, especially like that, where they seem to be aware of each other's presence or know each other, so to speak, and they tend to spend a lot of time together. And then it's usually quite pleasant interactions, just taking interest in each other, learning from each other. Here in Okukuyu, very different scene. You see it's getting quite busy. Looks like there's quite a bit of animals coming down. But it looks like it's a different type of calmness prevailing here. I can see a lot of springbok around. They don't seem too nervous. Really, they've got excellent eyesight. And it's nice and open in these parts. These animals are very well adapted for these arid conditions, being a mixed feeder, feeding of both grass and other plants. Can handle the high salt content in certain plants. One resource, of course, they can't go without is water, so these pans are extremely important this time of the year. During the dry season, not much other surface water around. You can see they walk a little bit in. And I can see they've got no fear of the crocodile here. Well, while the edges of this pan gets filled up, we're going to head back to Aldonio and see maybe if those jackals are still hanging around. Well, here we have 3 elephant bulls and seems like an oryx. Also quite a calming scene. They seem to be quite relaxed with each other's presence. But judging from the size of the 2 on the right, I think there's quite a clear hierarchy going on there. And we're back at Ukukuyu. And now there's quite a bit of springbok that's come down. Catherine, you asking if I've been to any of the places that we see on the cameras. I have been to some of them, yes indeed. I've been to Juma, I've been to Tembi. One I would like to see but haven't been to is Aldonio. I would love to see Ukukuyu. It's a well-known pan, this, and can get very, very busy, as we're currently seeing. Now, I know it might be tricky to spot in and amongst all those white rocks out there, but there's a lot of life around here, and they move from all over. They come from quite far to actually come and have a drink here during the middle of the day. But this is a spectacular spot. Lots of interaction at the right times. We can see, so this would be multiple groups of springboks coming down here. But yeah, I've been to some of the cameras and some, well, not the cameras, but some of the reserves. Some of them I haven't. But I would certainly love to go to all of them if I get the chance. Fascinating array of different habitats, each with its uniquely adapted creatures that thrive there. Josh Drown, you saying that Ukukuya had a marvelous scene of some black rhino, 2 of them, facing off with giraffes. That is pretty impressive. That is something that I would love to see. And that's the kind of interaction that I'm talking about. And with elephants, it sounds amazing. That is certainly a bucket list sighting, it sounds like to me. And that's the kind of interaction that I know Okukuyu is known for. You get creatures from all over. Now something that I'm seeing here which I haven't seen before is how these springbok are walking into the water. Now this is something I haven't noticed before. I'm assuming obviously they know that there's no direct threats within the water itself. Well, not currently. But it's a pretty impressive behavior that I've not noticed before. I'm assuming it's twofold. It's probably easier just to get as much moisture as necessary, but then also, of course, to cool itself down, especially around the belly area. For these antelope being ruminants, they have a lot of energy and chemical processes that take place in and around the belly, so it just generates a little bit of heat. I mean, antelope normally don't necessarily wade into the water that far. So that's something new for me. What a beautiful antelope. Very slim built, long legs, extremely fast when they need to be. You can see one was chased out of that group. So there's also clearly a hierarchy going on here. You can see a few younger ones if I look at the size of the horns. And the springbok, being well adapted to these drier regions, can, it's an antelope ruminant. It's still got relatively high water requirement, but they are well adapted and they have the time to come and properly take a drink at the time of the day that they come. So they only have to come down once, really, if the water is available. It's funny, I guess they know from the general mood and behavior of all the others that there's no predator around for now. We can see those powerful hind legs, so very, very quick acceleration when they need to, and even if something like lion, even cheetah had to go after them, they can be very, very quick if they need to out of the gates. Now they generally have an area that they'll be spending most of the time, which is where they'll feed and rest. You can see some of them are making their way quite deep into the water. Now, it might also be because of all the other animals that's come down, potentially creating quite a muddy stir. The geology in this region and the soils allow for the suspension of the small particles in the water for quite a long time after animals have stirred it up. So maybe they're just moving in deeper to get some of the cleaner water, especially once the elephants make their way past. And see what a barren landscape. Those white rocks must make it incredibly hard with all the glare for predatory animals to hunt, and for all of these animals to spend their time in and around it. Almost like each little group has got its time. I can see some wildebeest in the back as well. I haven't seen one come down to the water's edge yet. But the longer I stare, the more animals I see, which is incredible. There's literally springbok moving everywhere. Kim Fastino, I agree. The springbok is a very, very beautiful antelope. It's arguably one of the most beautiful ones. Well, certainly one of my favorite. They always look so clean. And sandy. You're asking how the animals are creating their own game paths. So it's a interesting question because there's a lot of aspects of the game path and a lot of aspects of how it gets created that's quite important to the ecosystems within this area. We find that you often have that the larger animals, like say for instance the elephant or even the rhino, they can tend to move quite large distances. They got heavy hooves, and you have in this particular region the larger antelope, like say the wildebeest for instance. Now they would move in the shortest, most direct pathway that they can find towards areas with known water and feeding grounds. And essentially they set up this network of paths that form directly between the good grazing grounds and feeding grounds to water. And over time, the most direct route, because using the most direct route allows the animal to also spend less energy. And that energy means that they can conserve the energy for should they need to outrun a predator or anything like that. Also, if they unnecessarily spend energy, that means they would have to eat more, which could be tricky certain times of the year. So mainly their hooves, which is made out of a hard substance, keratin, just similar to the substance that make our fingernails and hair. And when they move like that, they kind of kick up the top layer of the soil, gradually moving all the smaller rocks, eventually the larger rocks out of the way, and then creating that straightforward game path, which will then be used by other animals as well. So other animals, new animals moving into the area, they'll pick up on the scent that that area has been used. Also, it's more comfortable, and then they tend to stick to that. You'll find that different animals sometimes use different pathways heading in different directions. Different groups of animals moving in different directions. But in certain substrates, these pathways can get created in quite a short period of time, depending on how many animals move across it. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's an oryx that's come down there, also to drink. And what looks like a wildebeest. Now that's been pretty productive. I think we're going to head over to Founders Lodge and see what Africam's got us there this afternoon. Aha! A resting rhino. That is amazing. You can see he's covered in shade, or as much as possible as that thorny tree can provide. What a good spot to rest. He might have had a drink and a wallow earlier, so his possible spot to relax would be in the shade, like he's doing, keeping himself cool while not moving about too much. And in the foreground, you can see all the marks from hooves of animals coming down to the water on these hard soils. And from a distance, one wouldn't be sure to know that that's a rhino. If it wasn't that horn sticking out on the left-hand side of the tree, or the ears moving, you wouldn't know that for sure. And it's also interesting to note here that moving ear. You can hear and see flies and flying insects buzzing around. It might in part be why the ears are flicking. But it also goes to show, even when they're resting, they're still alert. And that ear is moving all kinds of directions. Picking up on whatever little sound it might hear. You can see even the call of the blacksmith lapwings making him tilting his ear. So not fully asleep, just resting. It's a bit of a shift. You can see the blacksmith lapwing there on the water's edge. We find when these large animals are laying down like that, they tend to move quite a bit, regularly adjusting their position. You can see those beautiful clear hills there in the background. You can see that it's been very busy around here. You can even see on that rock that some of the redder, wetter mud near the water has been rubbed off on that. And then that very naked looking dead tree. Good rubbing post, not so good for a rest. Thankfully for us, it's the one nearer the water with some shade. So while that rhino is resting, we're going to head over to Tau Lodge, see what's happening at the watering hole there. There we have, it looks like a spur fowl picking at some elephant dung. That's pretty amazing. Even if we don't see an elephant, you can see its impact, leaving behind this little ecosystem, so to speak, in each dung ball. Now they're looking quite red in color, like a reddish brown color from where I'm sitting, which is a clear indication of the change in their diet this time of the year. Probably having a lot of tannin, the chemical that plants uses to deter herbivores from feeding on their leaves. The elephant, being such a large animal, is quite capable of handling that, but it does show in the color of the dung this time of the year. After it dries out, of course, that's when it gets exposed to the sun, amongst other reasons. There's a wildebeest and a zebra, and one that's hopefully about to drink. Oh, and there we have him, the culprit. Very casually having a drink, very relaxed. You can see those white clays and how that bank's been worn down. To the right of the elephant, testament to all the creatures coming down to drink. And we can see, look at the zebra. Looks like he's struggling a little bit. Looks like he's drinking, so I can see the base of the jaw and the neck moving, so he's definitely slurping up some water there. It's quite a long drinking session for a zebra. Elephant just giving him look over. There's a nice big elephant bull, this. Just from the size of his tusks, but it looks like he's quite a mature male. Not too bothered by the presence of any other animals. As that zebra's moved off, you can see a bit of mud getting flicked up there in the air, and I'm pretty sure those hooves are well covered with mud now, and often when they step in muddy areas, that mud drying around the hooves become a little bit irritating and quite disturbing. And what happens is, after it's dried completely, sometimes you find it looks like a shell, the underside of the hoof, where the mud's caked and formed an imprint. So it's quite beautiful if you do find an intact one like that out in the field while walking. Here we go. He's had his drink, so now he's going to cover himself with mud. It looks like he stepped to a slightly wetter patch. While we're watching this elephant, you can see covering all the vital areas. Just want to remind our viewers of the wildlife photography event with Danielle Carstens next year at Mashatu Game Reserve. So next year, September 2025, it'll be a group size of 4. And of course, the talking points will be the use of an underground photo hide at the new Lala Limpopo Sleepout. It's on the dam. The dam used to be known as Pete's Pond, and it will of course be an extremely appealing event, especially for photographers. And we'll be staying in beautiful accommodation with aircon at Mashatu Lodge, and of course professional photographer and guide Danielle Carstens will be with you throughout the whole event, and you'll get exclusive use of a photographic vehicle while getting tutored and training when taking your safari photos. That sounds like a event that certainly cannot be missed if you are into your photography, and especially wildlife photography. This sounds like one of the ideal opportunities to do what you enjoy and also learn a little bit more. That was quite interesting to see. That young elephant didn't move directly through the muddy patch. He walked all the way around and skirted the edge there on that somewhat of a game path on the clay edge there. One thing that is quite useful for the elephant in this regard with this clay is it's got a really good coverage. It sticks fine materials. Even when it dries out, it covers the skin quite efficiently. And there we go. So he's not gonna cover himself in mud. Let's see what happens. It's quite interesting to see. If you look at the color of the hills at the back compared to the younger elephant, you can see where his skin might have attained that particular hue it's got now. It's probably somewhere there dusting itself earlier. You can see the grey on the trunk, but then the big elephant just having covered himself now in this locally available mud, it's got a completely different color. And goes to show all the different types of habitat and soils. There's another elephant coming in. Some wildebeest. Looks like it's getting busy here. Now, from what I can see, it looks like with the hills in the background, oof, there's a dust storm going up. It looks like these lower lying areas, like here where the water is probably a good spot where a lot of the soils have been deposited over the years. Runoff from the hills. After millions and millions and years of eroding. And of course, in the harder rock types, it's forming those hills in the back. What do we have there? That wildebeest. For a moment there, I thought I saw an ostrich. But it was wildebeest. And a single impala, capitalizing on whatever greenery is around. Now this guy looks in a really good condition for this time of the year. At least on the camera. You can see he's going off whatever short greenery is there. What a beautiful antelope. Slightly larger than the springbok we saw earlier. You can see those bottom jaws moving in the well-known circular motion. Grind plant material down at the back. Talking about the greenery here. It's also just let our viewers know of the Green Season Grand Tour that will be hosted by James Henry. It will be next year, April and May. So next year, 2025. And it'll be for group size of 8, but there's only 2 spots left out of these 8. So you've got to hurry. And this grand tour has so many unique and exciting things. It's going to be featuring many of the current and old Wild Earth presenters. There'll be a rhino collaring, which is a very unique and special event, and also contributing to the conservation of these animals. And it'll also be featuring a 2 wild film school workshop. Now that is also an opportunity not to be missed, getting to learn from experts in the field. And of course, the whole time you'll be accompanied and guided by James as your private guide. Also an extremely exciting opportunity. And gotta hurry for one of those 2 spots. There's quite a lot of food. I haven't really seen this impala move its feet too much. It's got good footing there. I'm assuming also you can see there's quite a lot of caked mud there. There might be some wet spots in between, and for him to be moving around this area might be tricky. You can see he's really working at getting that short plant material there. It's already been fed on, so it's definitely, it looks like a bit of grass. And this is where the impala is such an adaptable animal, and we're actually seeing this. As long as they have standing water, like he's got here, he's very capable of reaching all the way down to the shortest part of the grass to get necessary nutrients in the drier parts of the year. I'm assuming he's also picking up quite a bit of dirt and minerals that way. But another maybe lesser known aspect or lesser talked about aspect is the fact that in their large numbers, when things are very dire and dry, being able to crop the grass all the way down like that, they can certainly do a little bit of damage to an area, adding to overgrazing. And here we have 3 waterbuck. Carefully scoping it out, probably having a good look out for crocodiles that we know is around here. No, it looks like there's a few more elephants. That young elephant still hasn't covered himself with this mud. Here's a spur-winged goose. Very large. Actually a duck, not a goose at all. No native gooses to Africa other than what's been naturalized over the years, with one of the largest ducks there is. And apparently so large that it can't swim in this water. I wonder what that elephant's doing there, that big one. Doesn't seem to be eating. Almost looks like he's just kind of investigating that area, or taking a bit of a rest. And I find this quite interesting about these large elephant pools, especially if there's a few in an area. They can and do share certain spaces, but they give each other their space, almost like a mutual respect to each other, where they literally just continue along with their own thing. So while these elephants continue their whatever they're doing around here, we're gonna head over to Onguma to see what's happening there. Another elephant bull. Looks like a really large bull, this. It looks like he's utilizing whatever seepage from the pan to run down into that slightly lower elevated area. Looks like there's some greenery around there. But look at his color. You can see the pale soils in the background so clearly. He's been dusting himself today. Looks like he's just resting his trunk there. Maybe he's just enjoying a bit of the coolness there. You can see just the tip of the trunk out of the water. See a few birds. It looks like there's some helmeted guinea fowl and a blacksmith lapwing moving around there. You can see the water seeping through there. All these birds are utilizing that. I often find it interesting that animals tend to use the water further away from the pans often. Oh, the elephant's starting to stir a little bit more. When it's very hot like this. They usually do it under a tree, but they do occasionally tend to take a rest where they might doze off for a little while. And that's often when you just find an elephant standing like that, but they usually will prop themselves up against something. Well, let's see what he does. I'm hoping that he might move a little bit. It looks like he's in quite deep. I don't actually realize that it's that muddy there. And maybe this patch is providing some extremely well-deserved relief from the heat. It's been walking on an extremely hot surface, I'm sure. And the amount of distances that these animals can cover, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a nice cool relief. Even though they're quite hardy. The soles of their feet, they can basically go anywhere. Some of these elephants do move very, very long distances on the flat, warm ground. He's almost got he's got almost no tail hair left. This is just a couple. It looks like he's got his trunk completely, well, the tip of his trunk completely submerged. Now this is quite interesting. Elephants usually breathe through their trunk, and very little do they breathe through their mouth, but they can, however. Not often, but he's perfectly capable of. I can see the tip of the trunk there now. It's just resting top of the mud. And this is fascinating to watch, like just to see an elephant just standing there like this in the muddy patch. Not something you see too often. Oh, now while we watching this elephant just standing there, that is actually quite a unique opportunity. And I just want to remind viewers that you can send us questions and comments, and you can send it, you can either send it to wildearth.tv, or you can scan the QR code you are watching, and then of course you can also join the conversation on our YouTube chat at FC, and you can also head over to X or Twitter and use hashtag WildEarth. Aha, here we go. Another big elephant bull coming over. Now let's see. Let's see if he does the same. He looks like he's had some mud already. Just checking the area out. The other one's carefully stepped out of that patch he was standing, almost to avoid slipping. That was quite an interesting scenario there, and I'm inclined to think that he literally just stood there for a little bit of relief. And you can see this one drinking. And seeing two of these giants standing together like this, it's amazing. You just think about the amount and the wealth of knowledge these two must have about this area, knowing exactly where to find what, when. Years and years of knowledge getting passed down and acquired as they roam over massive distances. So let's see, maybe that one's heading over to the water to drink. It was quite a nice little interaction there, quite relaxed. But I think we're going to head over to Juma and we'll see what's happening around the watering hole there. Some baboons, amazing. Well, two young, playful baboons. It's quite a welcoming sight. Now, I haven't seen these guys on one of the Africamps for a while. We can see these guys are clearly quite in a relaxed mood, very, very playful mood. Near the water, always an exciting event. You can see a big one sitting there in the shade. Not wandering too far from a shade. Now I can imagine it looks quite hot. Looks quite open in these parts, although I can hear the wind blowing a bit. And that must be one of the bigger males sitting back there, just keeping a watchful eye. Giving a glance towards the lodge's side, but you can see very, very vigilant. Got quite a slow turning of the head, quite a slow gaze. It looks like the perfect spot in the shade on a hot day. Looks like a decent size male baboon here. You can see he's just glancing over to those young ones and the female. Ready to act whenever he should. Joan Miller, you saying that you like monkeys, but you're not too crazy about the apes. That's an interesting comment. Well, we can see that's quite a large baboon that just stood up, but they are in fact monkeys as well, these baboons, old world monkeys. I haven't had much interaction or sightings of apes other than what I've seen in the past in some zoos, and then I've been fortunate enough to see some gorillas and chimpanzees in the wild, which is certainly two of the most humbling experiences I've ever had in my life. But yeah, baboons and the monkeys we find in the low veld, or this region of Juma, is incredibly entertaining, or can be. Just like Victor's saying. Agreed, Victor, they can be very, very entertaining. You can see, I think this guy might have decided that the rest of the troops moved too far for his liking. Stop for a scratch and a sneeze. Wonder what he's been eating there. Often when they sit around like that, they often also they pick up whatever is nearby to eat, some of the insects from the ground, so forth. So maybe he's got a bit of dust that he picked up. It's given him an irritation, enough to sneeze. I mean, things are also starting to flower now, even though it's still dry. But it is. The season has definitely started to change. You can see some of them playing there in the background. Little ones jumping up trees. They're probably moving over to a shadier spot. Maybe with some bigger trees. But that was quite a welcome, entertaining sighting of some of these baboons. I think as they move off, we're going to head back over to Tao and we'll catch up with the elephants that side. Oh, and we've got some warthogs. One with a very red face. I'm always quite surprised. It looks like that little dip there is quite deep. Clearly eroded out from all the hooves of the different animals. You can see massive amounts of dried elephant dung around. So I'm assuming that when it's fuller, that's probably one of the main access points to the water. But I like how it can hide little surprises, sometimes even full-size zebras. But we're going to head over back to Onguma and see what's happening there, if those elephants are still around there. Aha. And they are. How lucky are we? Also, 3 warthogs. Way more guinea fowl now. And we just have the elephant standing in the water. Now, I was thinking earlier, and I was wondering about this, but it's amazing how different areas affect the behaviors of animals, or how different animals act in different areas. But I can see clearly here now with the genes compared to some of the other watering holes like East Africa and northern KwaZulu-Natal. It's definitely a different gene when it gets to the tusk size. I wonder how that developed. I mean, if I had to take a guess, I guess it could certainly also be due to past events that's taken place in the larger areas, but these regions were usually quite difficult to enter and quite challenging. So I think it's something I'll definitely have to read up about, is the past history, especially with regards to elephants in northern Namibia. But I would think that over the years the elephants maybe different mineral makeups and access to a limited amount of minerals might have affected the growth of tusks differently, and over generations might have found that some elephants in this area have a little bit smaller tusks in some of the more productive areas. Maybe the fact that they were able to stand like that just with their feet in the mud might be testament to the fact that they do spend a lot of time in open spaces. Other contributing factors, of course, the soils in this region, the muds and the clay, does maybe provide a little bit of a longer lasting relief. But how special to see these two large elephants engage in this playful behavior. Maybe this period of rest has given them a second wind, so to speak. Let's see if the elephant lays down. Maybe he was hoping that the other one might stick around for a little longer to kind of just prop himself up on. Now I know we've just come from the Africa Majuma and the Sabi Sands, but I'd like to mention a very, very amazing opportunity, which would be to travel to the Sabi Sand with Steve Falconbridge. It's in South Africa in the Lowveld region, and it would be next year in February. So in the wet season, it would be a spectacular, beautiful, very beautiful time of the year. Group size would be 6 people, and some of the talking points on that trip would certainly be, number one, that if you book a trip, you also get a free ticket to Dream, which means that you'll be able to join the live broadcast vehicle during a live show. And that is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So you'll be staying at Jackie Safari House, which is just around the corner from Juma, and it'll give you the perfect opportunity, if you're lucky enough, to see some of the well-known wild earth animal characters that we see in that region. So that is a very, very unique opportunity for those of you who would like to see the South African Lowveld in the summertime. There we go, the other one's also dipping down its backside. You can see it shaking its head, probably trying to get rid of some of the loose dust. And these two big elephants certainly showing a bit of playful behavior. And I'm sure they've encountered each other before. Oh, excuse me. There we go. You can see some clumps of mud coming out there. Now, there's a lot of splashing around here, so I'm taking that they are trying to loosen up that bottom soil to cover themselves. There we go. Let's see. I hope he lays down completely. That would be another first for me. Danny, this must certainly feel very, very good for these eddies. I mean, being out there in that hot sun all day, looking for something to feed. In this particular area, food would be quite widely distributed over a very, very large area, so it won't be as easily accessible. So, a relief from traveling in the hot, arid region. I'm pretty sure that this is heaven for them currently. And maybe also the little bit of social interaction. Now the pan doesn't look too deep. I think they've made it a little bit deeper now than what it was, at least where they were standing, and you can see they've certainly muddied it up properly. With these elephant bulls, this is not uncommon to see. Resting of the trunk on the back side of the other one. Now often what we do see is we see that with the male elephants, you might even see them mount each other, which is a little bit of a display of dominance. I think in this regard it's more playful. It's trying to push the other one down maybe, but there's always like a little bit of a push and tug going on. Especially with evenly sized animals like this. Even though it's not full out fighting, it's more of a playful way just to establish who's the stronger or the bigger of the two. Almost like a friendly reminder. It looks like the one on the right is not done with the water yet. And who would have thought that they'd be so playful in the water on such a hot day out in northern Namibia? It's almost like, I think the one in the water looks slightly smaller to me than the other one. Maybe a little bit younger, but they're very evenly sized in terms of their height. And I can see there's a lot of posturing going on. That one that's moving off now is holding his head high, making himself look quite big, where the other one almost seems to take advantage of each time he's turning around. Almost deliberately trying to push the boundaries here. But it's certainly quite an amazing sight to see two of these very, very large animals engage in playful behavior like this. And I can't help but wondering if they potentially could hurt each other. I mean, it's a lot of power. Those tusks, even though they're not that long, they're quite sharp. You can see that bigger one's kind of enticing the other one to come out of the water and follow him. A lot of interesting sounds coming through here. So these interactions, I'm sure they're not too often, maybe more so this time of the year. But it's also a chance maybe just to get a little bit of exercise, because at some point these guys do have to fight for a social position to be able to get access to females or to herds. He's displaying a little bit of frustration there, just showing off to the other one, as if that tree is not pushed over enough. It's just making sure he shows the tree that he is big and strong. And also getting a good scratch there. That's amazing. The whole tree shaking. But quite a creative way of quite a creative way of getting a good scratch in there. Unfortunately for these two trees being the only two trees out here near the water, I'm pretty sure that they are in for a lot of rough usage from these elephants. Computer enthusiast, you're saying that elephants are emotional animals that like the interaction. They certainly do. And in some regions there are quite a lot, or they're doing very well, and therefore the large herds provides ample opportunity for interaction. But other areas, due to the nature of the game and their ability to be resourceful in a vast space, the interactions is not as frequent, and that's what we are witnessing here. I think when they do get the chance, they utilize it. They are, after all, social animals. And yes, certainly that tree is not so lucky. You can see he's already had his fair share. He's still alive though. You can see the green leaves, so that's a good sign. It's not completely over with. You can see where the soil's been lifted and some of the roots are exposed just next to the elephant scratching. But it's still very much alive. And they're adaptable. Sandra, you asking if there's any tuskers in the region? I don't actually know. That's a good question. I guess it's something I'll have to have a look at. Do some research, see if I can find. I know that the elephants in northern Namibia isn't necessarily well known for their large tusks, but often large tusked animals doesn't necessarily mean large animals. You get some very, very large elephant with not so big tusks. What I've noticed, and from my own experience, is I've seen a couple of elephants with rather large tusks, not really that big actually. Tend to stand a little bit shorter by the shoulder than some of the other elephants. At least that's my experience from the Lowveld region. But I mean, there could always be. I know not too far east from Etoshapan, once you start moving towards Botswana side, there's definitely some animals with very decent sized tusks moving through those regions. But yeah, there's a very clear hesitation between these two to engage here in a proper push. I think these two are just playing. They just had maybe they were invigorated a little bit by the water. Maybe the fact that the elephant on the left is not doing anything is maybe making the other one a little bit more excited. Della, you saying that you're surprised they don't lose an eye when they ram each other like they are now. Now I've seen in the past where they can certainly hurt each other. Definitely they can. And that is always a risk with these very large animals, and it might be why the one on the left is a little bit more hesitant. You can see the other one's getting slightly more active, more animated. If I'm not mistaken, I saw a jackal behind that elephant in the water. Maybe one that I haven't seen up until now. I just got spooked by the elephant approaching. Might have been laying down next to one of those smaller shrubs. Almost like they're practicing a bit of a ritual here for when they actually do have to fight. But I've also had opportunities to witness where these playful fights do tend to escalate. And often when smaller elephant engage with a larger one, maybe after a little bit of consideration, the larger one might consider the smaller one being a little disrespectful. See that other one's slowly but surely starting to move backwards. This is quite spectacular to watch. I wonder how long they're gonna keep going like this, and if it's gonna get any more serious. There we go. Oh, I think that one's decided maybe this might escalate beyond where he would like to go. So maybe what we should do is head over to Juma. We see what's happening there in the last few minutes of the show. And here we have a saddle-billed stork. This is a bird I haven't seen in a while here. You can clearly see a yellow eye there. So this is a female. What a spectacular bird. Beautiful, beautiful bird. Beautiful colorings. Look at that bill. Perfect device for a waterside assassin. It's always special to see these birds, and they are quite unique. They are one of the birds in this particular region where Juma is situated that gets very carefully monitored, their numbers, to see the different fluctuations. But it's a bird that's prefers very well protected areas or wetland areas within well protected areas. You can just hear the Smith lapwing going there. You can see very slow, careful movements, not to disturb whatever might be around, and then once it gets something like that, I didn't even see what that was, or if it got something. And then it tends to speed up. Those long strides. Every time it lifts a foot, you can see it carefully pushes the toes together before placing it back into the water so as to make not too much of a splash. And of course the long toes providing it ample grip in the middle of the water on the soft sand. I can hear some oxpeckers coming in. I wonder if they're coming off some of the nearby antelope, or they might be coming to a roosting site. Here we go. Now these birds will go after anything really that they can grab and overpower with that powerful beak of theirs. For a moment there, I was hoping we could get a clear view of the face as it turned around. But they usually found, well, they can be seen either like this on their own, but there's often a mate nearby, the male. They're generally in the shallower regions. You can see with that view, if you compare it to the size of the bank there, it's a very large bird. One of the birds with the biggest wingspans in this region at least, alongside the marabou stork. I think they're neck and neck. We can see otherwise very dry region. There's a fish eagle, also a bird I haven't seen recently. Oh, amazing. And a call. Very lucky. Alicia Rose, it is indeed very wonderful colors of that saddle-billed stork. Beautiful pied colors, accentuated with a little bit of red here and there and the yellow. And this looks like a juvenile or a young fish eagle. Excuse me. You can see it's just checking up into the sky. And I'm not sure if it's looking out for other eels. But I think this is my first fish eagle for wild earth life at the watering hole, which is quite strange. I didn't think about it, but such a uniquely African bird and almost synonymous with watering holes in South Africa. So, and this is a excuse me. This has been a really good afternoon. But I'd like to thank all our viewers for joining us this afternoon. What a way to end it with this fish eagle. It's been a spectacular afternoon, and I really hope that you join us again tomorrow afternoon. So goodbye for now from all of us here at Wild Earth.